Hello again, everyone. Welcome to this special edition of Discovery Road. In this episode, we hear untold stories of long-ago pioneers with disabilities who traveled the historic Mormon Trail. Heartbreaking, inspiring, and true. Plus, Rand's road food and endless discoveries, so we'd better get started. This is the Place Monument is the place we begin our trip. Some important history reminders and images here, especially this mural titled The Pioneer Trek. It gives us an overview of the Mormon Trail and in this signature, a clue about something we'll discover later. Travel along the Mormon Trail and you will know a great American exodus. Even from the comfort of today's ride, you can feel the power of this vast crossing. Step onto the earth where the wagons creaked and rolled, where the handcarts were pulled to their unknown future, you will understand the recital. And walk among the grave markers, you will be changed. It changed this man.
But really the event that got me thinking about this was being on a trek with my daughter for a youth trek out on the plains of Wyoming.
No, it was not in any classroom or on any campus where Dr. Bryce Fifield had an epiphany about little-known stories on the Mormon Trail.
At the time, I was struggling with some foot problems, and I thought I was going to die. We were out on the plains of Wyoming getting ready to climb Rocky Ridge, and I recall it was probably 95 degrees in early July, and we were hiking along, and my wife was with me, and we were passing these markers along the way that said Mormon Trail, Oregon Trail, this is the path of the Pony Express. And I remember just being tired and stopping and thinking, I don't know if I can possibly make it. We've got a 50-mile hike that we're doing. And it occurred to me, that along this very path, 70,000 immigrants had gone from the area of winter quarters to end up in the Great Basin. And we'd always heard about stories of people that were going along with crutches and hobbling along, and I wondered how many of those 70,000 people had disabilities like we refer to them today. And so when we got done, I did survive the trek. No small miracle, but I did survive the trek.
Our schedule was to leave 2 weeks previous, but the handcarts are not ready. This delay could cause us much trouble later.
Immigrants faced a staggering number of challenges on the trail. Animal, insect, and snake bites, cuts, bruises, and broken bones, fever, disease, fighting, theft, threats, and all sorts of bad weather.
It is the lateness of the season. If the weak, old, and sickly continue in this late season, their bones will strew the way.
And a surprising number were physically and emotionally disabled.
If you have any strength left at all, please, if you can, go back and help the others.
Today, things are much different all along the Mormon Trail. You find easy access and appropriate regard for people with disabilities, like these historic markers at Fort Bridger in Wyoming, signage for the blind. But it's these images that tell us what the feelings were around the time of the Mormon Trail. And so the story begins. It's 1860. A Swedish woman named Ingra Borg in the William Budge Company is trying to keep up in order to find a future.
Ingra and a son, or it may have been a nephew or another family member, were described by another member of the company as walking most of the way. But the author says that she was lame and that she and her son were always late coming in at the end of the day. The author says that their only possession was a cow, so she and this young boy Frederick were bringing this cow across, and they would end up being the last ones into camp. And the story is that towards the end of one day, the people had made their destination, their quota of miles that day, and were setting up camp. And of course, Ingra and her traveling mate and their cow were still out on the prairie, finding their way across. And the author says that they heard Indians surrounding and chasing after Ingra and Frederick, and they could hear their screams, and so they mobilized very quickly to go out and help her chase the Indians off. Well, they killed the cow, drug the cow off, and Ingra and Frederick finally made it into camp.
Ingra Borg did complete the 1,300-mile trek.
Look at you.
And here in Sigurd, Utah, more than 150 years later, we find the latest chapter of the Borg family story. Descendants of the woman who was the last one into camp nearly every night.
It's just amazing how she had to leave early before the wagon train started. And by the time she got in at the evening, probably all the food was cold. And they had to lay down and find a little place to sleep so they could get up and do it all again. And I just can't imagine how difficult that was. She's so funny. If she wants to talk to you, she will. And if she don't, she'll spit on you. Huh?
Ranching in the family is no accident. Locals say one of Ingra's sons, Ole Peter Borg, helped blaze the trails of Sevier County. He had a harness business and had a hand in building the first canal that carried water to the fields and ranches around here.
Being a descendant of Ingra Borg on the Mormon Trail is absolute breathtaking, is the word. She did struggle, and she did do whatever she needed to do to obtain what was in her heart. And I do appreciate that fact. Today, it seems like we just don't have to work for what we want. And I hope through the lessons that she has taught us that we'll learn to appreciate what she's done.
The question, the quandary that pioneers with disabilities give us today, what is our camp like? Do we make sure that they are with us when we settle down at the end of the day's trip, or do we leave them out on the prairie? Do we leave them to fend for themselves? Do we wait for them to come in? And that was certainly the case with Ingra and Frederick. They were left to their own devices and make it as best they could. That's kind of a challenge for us today in how we deal with disabilities in our communities.
Ingra Borg lived to the age of 66 and is buried in Mount Pleasant, Utah. Her remarkable story continues to amaze everyone who hears it. A long ago incident out there on the Mormon Trail, a family story of courage, an important lesson in history. This Pony Express station is named after Gothenburg, Sweden, reflecting the early Swedish heritage around here. The Pony Express Trail is an amazing piece of history. One of the founders was Major Howard Egan, quite a guy. As an envoy for the Mormon Battalion, he delivered letters, packages, and the first payment from soldiers to families waiting at winter quarters. In his 40s, Egan was one of the oldest riders on the Pony Express. Another thing we discovered was how the Pony Express was so important to those who traveled on the Mormon Trail.
Whoa! I've got Pony Express mail for Discovery Road. Mormon immigrants and settlers were eager for the latest news by Pony Express because it came in 10 days as opposed to 3 weeks by normal mail routes. And the Mormons played a major role in the success of the Pony Express enterprise. As organizers, a number of Mormons were among the riders and station keepers, and the farmers and ranchers in Utah Territory provided supplies for the stations.
I spent the day in the shade of a tree, thinking how we best to spend this precious time that we've been given. I came to thinking that the best use of my time would be with you. That'll make me happy.
Oh yes, the ease of travel along Interstate 80 today, which overlays many portions of the Mormon Trail. It's borne out when we get hungry. Google a location, find the restaurant, within minutes, we're all ordering breakfast.
I'm trying to decide between the pancake combo or the grilled steak and eggs. That's a tough one.
I would recommend the pancakes. I think they're really good.
I'll go with that.
Okay. And do you do bacon, sausage, or ham?
Ham.
And how do you want your eggs?
Over medium, please. And can I get a side order of wheat toast?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. We're gonna do this prairie roast breakfast.
Okay.
There isn't any flour. Good girl.
Okay.
And then a little steak on the side.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then you could do white wheat, sourdough, rye, English muffin, a biscuit, or pancake.
I came to thinking that the best use of my time would be with
Smile.
you. That'll make me happy.
Our way station and fuel stop as easy as a convenience store or a grocery store. We can pick whatever ingredients we want, travel hundreds of miles, eating food as often as we want. The pioneers, of course, had but a handful of selections to carry across the plains.
Hey Marcus, do you want tomato on yours? Good, because I put it on there.
Yeah,
hey guys, it's tough fare, but this is all I've got.
Got it. Okay, keeping us on task. The Mormon Trail Cookbook, endeavors, struggles, cooking traditions of the Mormon pioneers. Let me read from it, okay?
Would you please?
Many times ingredients for cherished recipes could not be found in this new country, and Mormon cooks had to make do with what they could. Using the fruits of the land, they tried to cure any homesickness by preparing the recipes from their old country. Which means feed them with what you got, Rand. We're hungry, and I'm cold. Marcus, are you cold?
I didn't put the mustard on, so come finish it up for your, however you want to roll it.
The tailgate sandwich party.
This is it. This is the tailgate sandwich party. Here we are.
It can't be fancy, but it's going to be filling.
Yeah.
I'm good to go.
It'll fill
Which
you
one's
up.
mine?
Yeah, these, Jimmy, yours are the Wheaties.
Okay.
Bart's the Whiteys.
All right, I'm good to
And,
go, guys.
Okay, I'll make yours in just a sec. How's it taste?
Delicious.
Is it okay?
It's very good.
Good. Okay,
A little bit dry,
it's lean. It's lean and mean.
okay, but I'm not complaining.
Hey, but look at this. Look at what we have. Here we are. We're making sandwiches in a wonderful car, and we can jump in and drive away. But those folks, they couldn't. It was tough, brutal, cold.
Like me, I'm cold.
It's good to eat. Denmark in the 1830s, 5-year-old Maren Anderson becomes very sick. Weakness sets in, then paralysis on her left side. She would have to use crutches the rest of her life, but that didn't slow her down. Against her family's objection, she joined the Mormon Church and a large group of Scandinavians heading out on the Mormon Trail, clutching only a starter plant from her homeland. On the trail, she met Jens Hansen from Manti. She would become his second wife.
Maren found opportunity for a new life here in Utah, and when she told her family that, they disowned her. They told her if she left that they would never speak to her again, and they never did.
Robert Armstrong is a great-grandson of Maren Anderson Hansen. As a physician, he sees her life story as nothing short of incredible.
1,300 miles on wagons, essentially camping out and living outdoors, and probably walking a great deal of that distance on a crutch must have been painful beyond belief. As a physician, I can imagine what she must have suffered and how her evenings must have been spent trying to relax from the pains and the muscle spasms in those days.
In Manti, her life was full. Balancing on a crutch, Maren pulled weeds, planted seeds, and made the garden grow. She would also spin yarn from local sheep's wool into top-notch wearing apparel.
Maren was trained as a seamstress. She was apprenticed to a seamstress in Denmark, and she made her living by making clothes for the ladies. The family was proud that she made many of the clothes for the people who worked on the temple, who built the temple while she was here. And while she was alive, she was the person you went to when you needed a new coat or a new dress or new trousers. And so she worked for her living, and I think if you'd asked her if she was disabled, she would have said absolutely not.
In this photo of the Manti family home, evidence of Maren Hansen's only connection to her Denmark, a climbing vine, planted from that starter seedling she carried across the plains more than 150 years before.
Maren's example of resilience and determination to do the things that make life worthwhile, to have a family and to support oneself, are things that we like our children to know about. We're all proud of her, and we try to bring her example into our own lives.
A lasting legacy about resiliency, life, and beauty. Hans Ulrich Breiner was a butcher by trade. In his Switzerland homeland, he was an artist who loved painting. At age 16, he fell ill, dreamed about being led on a long journey by two men. He could not see but only hear their description about the ocean, the prairie, and Zion. Many years later, Hans was dressing a hog when his left eye was struck, bursting the pupil. Infection set in, blinding him in both eyes. In a strange twist, two missionaries similar to those Hans had dreamed about showed up, preaching Mormonism. One was from Mount Pleasant, the other from Manti. Hans was baptized, and the family immigrated to Utah.
Generally, Hans Ulrich would have followed with his family along behind the wagon. Someone would be driving the wagon, probably pulled by oxen or maybe very large draft horses. And the story is that he would hold on to the tailgate of the wagon or a rope attached to the wagon and follow along. plodding along with one of his family members, helping him navigate where there would be rough terrain or rocks or uneven parts of the road. That 1,000-mile journey, following behind the wagon without being able to see, must have been an incredible experience. But I think it speaks a little bit about Hans, but it also speaks a lot about those that were around him, those that helped him make that journey.
The sight and sound of coal country in Utah. Big chugging locomotives, rattling bins brimming with endless chunks of the Utah State rock, hugged by rugged mountains, tamed by pioneers, miners, preachers, and dreamers. A precious past. And on Main Street in the Price, Utah Municipal Hall, the best reminder of all of it. A mural depicting the heritage and industry that gave this place an identity. An art piece commissioned by the Works Progress Administration in 1938.
Commemorative tablets like this are among the contributions of sculptors to the Works program. Some of this work is done on canvas, but much of it is created on the walls of our schools, libraries, and other public buildings in the form of mural paintings.
The artist for this mural, Lynn Fawcett, who included himself in the picture, right there, as a youngster holding hands with his grandfather, none other than Hans Ulrich Breiner, the blind man who crossed the plains with a vision, the man who helped settle the area, a true pioneer. Fawcett. Remember that last name? The mural about the Mormon Trail at This Is the Place State Park? Yes, that's another of his works. Lynn Fawcett became an accomplished artist. So did his brother Dean Fawcett, who created this statue dedicated to pioneer women who birthed and buried loved ones on the Mormon Trail. The family talent would be passed on.
This is my grandfather. This is Lynn and Dean's father, and this is Doll Fawcett. And these are the artists that come through these different families. Hans was blind, and the artists that come through him are not, and it would be hard for him to envision what these artists do and the beauty that comes from him.
From the contributions of art in a community to the courtroom, we find Hans Ulrich Breiner's influence.
Well, his life is important to me because it exemplifies the principle of never giving up, enduring to the end. When I think of him crossing the plains approximately 1,300 miles while blind, I'm sure he walked much of the way, but apparently he rode in a wagon for some of the way as well. But to cross the plains, I often wonder how often he must have fallen or stumbled as he walked along, and then I start thinking, well, it's not important how many times he fell down, but rather how many times he picked himself up.
No matter how far removed from the family history, going back to the trail changes people.
Well, we've traveled along the Mormon Trail many times. My one son was attending school back in Iowa, and we'd go back there every summer to see him, and on the way back we'd follow the Mormon Trail for quite a ways. But that's important to me and always has been because we've used it in many talks, talked about the perseverance of those old pioneers and what they went through.
A family photo. A dentist, attorneys, moms and dads and children, success all around, and all descendants of Hans Ulrich Breiner.
They've always just had this desire to succeed, and when they were young they would give talks in church and other places where they talk about Hans Ulrich and how he had inspired them and made them want to succeed in whatever they did in life. And I think they used that as a model. I think that's very important, and that
perhaps is symbolic of Americanism that we step forward and do those types of things, but that's been a big inspiration in our family, that he was brave enough to do that.
Learning about their stories gives flesh and body to their experiences, and it informs us today about what our world is like and what our world could be like. These were people that were with disabilities, but they were people first. They had the same kinds of aspirations that their family members had, that their traveling mates had. They wanted to get to Zion just like everybody else did.
Back on the open road, beauty in every direction, bounty across the plains, and swirling underneath the modern freeway system, the unmistakable echo of yesterday, the inspiring stories whispered to us. Ingeborg, Maren Anderson Hansen, Hans Ulrich Breiner, and all the others on the Mormon Trail, in a company of their own. Thanks for joining us again for this historic trek along the Mormon Trail. I'm James Nelson, and we'll see you next time out here on Discovery Road.